wander through, bump around, believe anything you hear. If you want to kill a church, jump the shark when it comes to theology. The second is a very interesting one because it's sneaky, and it shows up our lives sometimes in just nefarious ways, and that's gossip. And sometimes we hide gossip with, hey, Laura May, I just want you to pray for Melissa. And then I tell you some horrible thing about Melissa. Now, Melissa's sweet. I don't know a horrible thing about her. But if you do, come and tell me. See how nefarious gossip is? We hide gossip with prayer requests. We hide gossip with, look, I just think you should know. Are you sure about that? Because I don't think I need to know. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 19. He who goes about as a slanderer reveals secrets. Therefore, don't associate with a gossip. Have you ever had to look at somebody and go, I can't talk to you about this, or I just can't talk to you? That sounds very high horse, doesn't it? Yeah. Sounds a little self-righteous. Do you understand? It's probably not. But what we think is, well, you're the problem. Well, how can you not listen to this? Well, because it's gossip. I don't want to hear it. Because you know and I know this. If Jim, who I've never heard gossip, if Jim will gossip about somebody to me, Jim will gossip about me to somebody else. That's a truth. That is fundamentally irrefutable. That's what gossip does. Romans chapter 1, verses 28 to 32. Romans chapter 1 is a very heavy chapter. There's a lot of really compelling stuff in it, and it's very direct, and it puts a bullseye on almost all of us. He said, and just as they did not see fit to acknowledge God any longer, they abandoned worshiping God. God gave them over to a depraved mind. I think King James says reprobate, which sounds bigger and worse. He gave them over to a depraved mind to do those things which are not proper, being filled with all unrighteousness. Now look at this list. Being filled with all unrighteousness, wickedness, greed, evil, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, malice. They're gossips. He just used gossips in the same sentence where he said they hate God. Where he talked about murderers. He used gossip in the same context. Slanderers, haters of God, insolent. I don't even know what insolent means. I'm sure it's bad because it's in that list. Arrogant. I do know what insolent means. So please don't send me an email. Inventors of evil. Disobedient. He lists disobedience to parents in the same way that he talks about haters of God. Without understanding, untrustworthy, unloving, unmerciful. He lists unmerciful in the same way he talks about somebody who hates God. And although they knew the ordinances of God, that those who practice such things are worthy of death, they not only do those things, but they also give hearty approval to those who practice them. So you get it. Gossip cannot exist. It cannot exist if nobody's listening to it. It's impossible. So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, did you know? And you go, no, and I don't want to know. Gone, done, no more gossip. James chapter 3 talks about the tongue and the power that it has. He says, let not many of you become teachers, my brethren, knowing that such will incur a stricter judgment, meaning like people in leadership are more accountable than others. For we all stumble in many ways. If anyone who does not stumble in what he says, the tongue, he's a perfect man, able to bridle the whole body as well. Wow. Let's talk about the tongue. In this context, he says, you know what? We put bits in horses' mouths and make them go where we want. We put rudders on ships and steer it around. But the tongue causes so much damage. He says, anybody who can manage that, they're a perfect person. This week I ran into a buddy of mine. I had a lunch meeting, and this guy, we went to this place, and this guy was finishing up breakfast. And I've talked about this guy before. I won't use his name, but I sit down with him, and we talk for a while, and we're talking about life and stuff going on. I've known him for over 15 years. And he goes, you know, Brother Will, I've never met a perfect person. I said, you know, I haven't either, and the one that was perfect, they crucified him for it. He says, if you can manage your own tongue, you're perfect. James chapter 3, verses 9 to 12. He says, with the tongue we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who have been made in God's likeness. Let me ask you this. Have you ever been tempted to look at one of your children and say, you're just like your dad? Was that a compliment? You're just like your mother. Is that a compliment? It's not, is it? No. He says you curse people who are made in God's likeness. What if we really had that heart where we were able to look at somebody and go, you know what, Tim, you're just like your dad in heaven. What a compliment to say, oh, you have the character of Jesus. Verse 10, for from the same mouth come both blessing and cursing, my brethren. It not ought to be that way. Does a fountain send out from the same opening both fresh water and bitter water? Can a fig tree, which we all hate figs, we know that. Can a fig tree, my brothers, produce olives? This is common sense, right? You don't get peaches from apple trees. That does not exist. You don't get salt water from a freshwater spring. So when we behave in a way that is contrary to what God says, we bless God and we curse people. We gossip. You want to kill a